This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
How's it going? I'm Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, host and creator of the Within the Trenches podcast and founder of the I Am 911 movement. Yesterday, on August 12th, between 4:30 and 5:30, I did the first session for Imagine Listening in open mic. And it was an amazing experience to be in there with all of you. Thank you so much for being there and sharing stories and for being there for each other. There were many tears and many laughs at the end. One of the things, when doing a session like this, you only have an hour to do it, so there's only so much time. So the first 30 minutes is Imagine Listening. And then the last 30 minutes is open mic. Sometimes I go over a little bit on Imagine Listening because there's so many people who want to share stories. And these are the stories that were written down and given to me, and each one of them got a coin. And I didn't get a chance to read them during that session, but I want to read them now. They will be included in the episode as well, but I just want to give you a glimpse of some of the stories that come out of the most vital piece of public safety, which is 911 dispatch. So this is from Imagine Listening. And these are stories that were shared, written down and shared. Newly released from training, I was answering phones, EMDing medical calls, and Channel 2. I answered a call from a man who said, "You have to help my friend. He's not breathing." I got the location, which was hard because the caller was freaking out. After the address, I started to EMD. Going through the first few questions, I started to recognize the voice on the other side of the line. And I looked at my partner and said, "You have to take over. It's my best friend, Dustin." And the caller is our friend Steve. Steve never told me his name. I felt I couldn't do this. I failed. Then as my partner took over, I could hear my friend Dustin say, "You are okay. Get back in the game. I know you can do this. You're no help to me if you stop." I then re-engaged. I got fire, medical, flight for life, deputies. Dustin was my best friend and worked for our city PD as a dispatcher. He is the reason I started this. Even though we worked separate agencies, Dustin passed. He was 28 years old, and him and our friend were 21 miles from town. It felt like it took forever for help to get to him. The caller said, "You may have felt like you could have done more, but I will tell you, it was like out of the movies. Everyone showed up at once. When fire was pulling up, ambulance was pulling up, flight touching down, and deputies and lieutenant on scene. This was the call that was going to make me or break me. I learned so much, and it made me want to be better. And when I struggle, I know Dustin has his dispatch wings around me. Stay strong. I am 911. heard you scream first. Your boyfriend had just shot himself in the head after an argument. You said he has been drinking, and you told him to go downstairs. You told him to go upstairs. Next, you heard the gunshot. You dialed 911. As you ran up the stairs, I answered. As you reached him, he was still breathing. I still hear you scream years later. I am yet to know how it ended. All I have is your scream. I am 911. After 7 years on the job and many suicide calls taken, even a few murders, the sounds of your hysterical sister calling in your suicide just days after returning from overseas on deployment protecting our country. Yours hit me like a freight train. And I still think about you daily, even though we never met. I am 911. I remember being given the phone call. I heard you were already crying and panicking. You were foreign, and it was difficult to give you directions for CPR. The baby you were giving CPR to was already dead. That's what the paramedics told us. We did 4 sessions of CPR before I heard the paramedic yelling, "Give it to me." I am 911. A 9-year-old girl called in and was sobbing. When asked what the emergency was, she had just watched her father get run over by a driver. Her sobs still are with me. He did not survive. I am 911. It was just another regular midnight shift, but I answered your call. Your boyfriend had rolled over on your newborn baby in the middle of the night. Your child died that night. I will never forget your screams. They still haunt me. When I had my son a few years later, I never co-slept with him. This is the reason. I am 911. I was on the radio when they found your car. I remember my heart sinking when they called for the ANI. I was the only one who knew you were gone for hours. I save and help people every day, but I couldn't save you. I am 911. I've been a dispatcher call taker for 10 years. And barely 3 months into my career, I took the last call of my shift. There was a father of a 4-month-old baby found in his crib, not breathing. The father was understandably upset and kept disconnecting the line after continuously begging for me to save his child, that his child was all he had. I continued to call him back and tried to get him to start CPR. He would beg and cry and hang up. Finally, units arrived, and the child was in fact deceased. Every child not breathing call, I still hear him begging me to save his child's life and not being able to help him. I am 911. I answered your call. You were crying. The kids were screaming. All of you were pleading for her to be okay. 2 days before we played cards, you described your wife being electrocuted by a camper. The kids were begging for mommy to wake up. You were saying, please, beautiful, don't leave me, beautiful. We need you, beautiful. I sent everyone. I stayed on the phone while Acadian gave CPR instructions. We are still family. We are just smaller now. I am 911. You called reporting an active shooter in your building. I'm still amazed at how calm your voice was and that you had already barricaded yourself and coworkers in your office. That was my first time hearing gunshots over the phone. I know you survived, but hanging up was the hardest thing I've had to do. I still think of you, and I hope you're handling the situation as best as you can. I am 911. Six months into dispatching, I got a call from a man hiding between cars and has a weapon. I dispatched officers to the call, and my caller said the man had went into a trailer. Officers got on scene, and two officers said they were going to make contact at the door. Not even 10 seconds later, I hear screams of shots fired, and I have been stabbed twice. My officer survived, but that call will stay with me forever. The screams of my officer on the radio. I was alone in dispatch that day. I am 911. I was internally frustrated when you couldn't really give me a good description of your location or the crash. Then I found out you rolled up on two dead bodies from the crash. I really hope my frustration didn't come through to you. I'm sorry. I am 911. I'll never forget the screams I heard as I answered the 911 phone. I'm a 20-year dispatcher at this point and had heard many things throughout my career. Today, I still hear your screams and will never forget what you said. Please help me. I'm 6, and my daddy just raped me. I can't talk because he's chasing me and is going to find me. As I'm trying to ask questions, I hear two gunshots. Her father did indeed find her, and he killed her, and then himself. As if this wasn't bad enough, I found out the little girl's mother knew that this had been going on since her daughter was 4 and didn't care. I wish I could have saved her. God bless all dispatchers. I am 911. Almost a year ago, one of my friends and officers was shot while investigating a typical 911 hang-up call in what is considered one of the safest cities in our jurisdiction. Hearing you say that you had been shot was a low point in my career. I thank God every day for the outpouring of support from surrounding agencies, which made your survival possible. I am 911. Again, thank you all for sharing your stories. And for those watching, this is what it's like within the trenches. Just imagine listening to those types of calls. Now, there are some rare good ones, yes, but a lot of them are like this, and they stick with us. Again, all of you that were there in the session yesterday, thank you for having the courage to share your stories and for being there for each other. It was amazing, and it was an honor to be there with all of you.